Here's a segment from this month's edition of St. Charles Parish Today, a new monthly local talk show.
Charles Parish has been the veritable epicenter of the fight to prevent skyrocketing flood insurance premiums since the Federal Emergency Management Agency unveiled proposed new flood insurance rate maps in March of this year. As the months have gone by, a growing number of states have joined the fight, with New Jersey becoming another flashpoint due to compounded issues with Hurricane Sandy recovery. While St. Charles Parish's maps have been placed on hold pending further review and consideration of local levies, the parish continues to push for congressional action to both reinstate grandfathering of flood insurance policies and institute affordable flood insurance rates for all. In mid-September, the parish president attended a Senate committee hearing on flood insurance rates, helping put flood insurance in the national media spotlight. This issue continues to take in many different facets, including flood insurance profitability, congressional actions, mapping science, flood protection, and much more. Here with us to provide an update is St. Charles Parish President Vijay St. Pierre, St. Charles Chief Administrative Officer Buddy Bowe, and MAP Appeals Specialist Dr. Joseph Saheda. Thank you all three for being here today to talk about this continually important issue in St. Charles Parish. So we know that solving this problem of flood insurance affordability has two sides to it. There's a legislative side and a mapping side. So what do we know about the status of a legislative fix and a possible timeline on that?
Well, Renee, as you know, last week I was in Washington, D.C., attended the Senate budget hearing with Senator Vitter and Senator Landrieu, questioned Craig Fugate, Director of FEMA. And there were 12 people that testified at this committee, and not one of them denied that the affordability of these rates is not affordable. And what Senator Vitter and Senator Landrieu are both asking Fugate to do is to delay the implementation of these new rates. He said under the current law he doesn't have that authority, but Senator Vitter reminded him that the rates were supposed to go into effect last April, okay? He kept delaying them. They were supposed to go after April, they will be implemented in June, and then we only finally got the rates last month. So his question is, he didn't have the authority at the time to move forward the rates at the time they were supposed to be implemented. He moved that back, so why can't he move back the implementation of the rates, which is going to go into effect October 1st in our parish for businesses and some secondary homes. Mm-hmm. But I guess the bottom line is, what are we looking at? Senator Cassidy and Senator Landrieu both introduced bills to delay the implementation. I don't think they're going to vote on it in this session. So luckily in St. Charles Parish, since we didn't adopt our maps, our rates are really not going to go into effect probably for another 2-3 years, because by the time Dr. Saheda and FEMA finagle over the maps, and then once we submit our maps, they have like a year to come back and respond to it. So we're looking at probably about a 3-year reprieve on delays other than businesses and secondary homes. So as it stands right now, that's where our rates increase in St. Charles Parish. The only rate you're going to see is the normal rates that you would have gotten before Biggers Waters.
Right, and that's good for people to know.
Yeah, and you know the sad part about this thing, we wouldn't be talking about Biggers Waters if the Corps of Engineers wouldn't have made an engineering error on the 17th Street Canal, where those T-walls collapsed. Okay, that's what caused all this. And they're saying we're $27 billion in the hole, but there's a lot of questions that since we've been investigating these things that are unanswered. Like we just found out that 40% of all people who have federal loans are not carrying flood insurance. So naturally, one of the questions is, how much money would that 40% bring into the till, and how much more solvable would it be? Because as I understand it, prior to Katrina, there was always in the black, and now they're claiming we're in the red. So that's what brought all this about.
Right. So those questions that you raised about the NFIP and how it's being managed, that all kind of rolls into a report that GNO Inc. came out with a few weeks ago after the National Flood Insurance Chief, David Miller, came and visited Southeast Louisiana. Those are the questions that they had about the manageability of the program and the way that whole program is managed. So, Buddy, if you wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the report that GNO Inc. came out with and what their findings were.
And I'll just add to what the parish president just stated, that the core group that Parish President St. Pierre is a part of, with over 20 parish presidents throughout the state, they're looking at every angle to fix this legislatively, and we were hoping to get it into the Homeland Security budget. DC can't get anything done, so it doesn't look like that budget will happen, that they'll just do a continuing resolution. Their group is currently researching a possible class action. We're looking at other legislative ways to get this fixed in DC, since FEMA doesn't think they can do it within the current law. So I just want the residents of St. Charles and whoever else is watching to know that the group's trying to figure out any way possible to get this amended. The amendments were key to delay it, to give us about a year or two to finally fix this and completely fix this. Doesn't look like that'll happen, so we're looking at an executive order from the president and a few other options. Regarding the report from GNO Inc., when David Miller came here, there was a roundtable that Parish President St. Pierre attended with about 10 other parish presidents, federal, local, state officials. It was a packed room. Dr. Saheda was there, and FEMA couldn't answer a bunch of questions. And so Senator Landrieu asked GNO Inc. to spend a couple of weeks going back and forth with FEMA to come up with some answers. Simple answers, like how many people are actually buying flood insurance that should, because about 40% of those people in the country that should have flood insurance don't have it. And if those people had been paying, what would we be like as far as financially solvent for the program? FEMA's answer to that was they didn't know why those 40% weren't paying, but Biggert-Waters implemented a fine now for the banks. So if a bank doesn't put a flood insurance policy in effect when they're supposed to, and FEMA discovers that, the bank will be fined. So we're hoping that that encourages more people to get flood insurance. The other question was how much goes of the annual premium that a resident pays, how much goes towards the insurance company and agents' commissions. FEMA's answered a different number every time, but it ranges between 30% and 47%. Give or take the year, how much they put towards debt service. But on average, it's about 30 to 47% of every dollar a resident pays. So there's some talks at the federal level, and I think Craig Fugate mentioned this, a possible cap on that to help relieve some of the pain, so that over a certain dollar amount, those insurance companies wouldn't get that large percentage increase. The other question was whether or not our flood insurance policy premiums that people are paying goes to pay other programs that the federal government delivers, grants and that sort of thing. And the answer for FEMA is no. It goes straight towards losses and overhead expenses. Inside of the annual premium, FEMA also admitted that over about 10 to 15% goes to overhead. So when you add up the insurance commission, the agent's commission plus overhead, it's only about 40% goes towards the actual losses or into the account to pay the bills that year for FEMA if there's a catastrophe. And Parish President St. Pierre is right. If you take Katrina's year out of the equation, FEMA has stated it's $17 billion in the hole. $16 billion was Katrina. And that was not caused because of anything that the people did do. It's because of the Corps. And they're now trying to force a complete reform, or they have forced a complete reform of the program. So we're continuing to find options, and FEMA has had to answer some tough questions that they couldn't before, and hopefully that puts their feet to the fire on changing this a bit, or working with us a bit more.
Right, definitely. And I want to point out for the people who are watching, if they want to read that entire report, it's at scpfloodmaps.com. Next question for Dr. Saheda. You're involved with not only the parish's appeal of the flood maps themselves, but also the levee analysis and mapping approach pilot program that the parish and FEMA are embarking upon right as we speak. What should residents know about that?
Well, the appeal process is one that relates to the digital flood insurance rate maps that come out and are issued by FEMA. Mm-hmm. And they have to officially present those to a community or the parish. And then the community has like 90 days to review those. Well, we're in a kind of a unique position where FEMA has yet to really officially give the parish the maps. So we're really not in the appeal period because of this LAMP program, which is a separate thing, but they're connected, because what we find in this parish and many across the state is that there are flood protection structures that were formally given credit, levees, and you were behind them and you got an insurance rate because the flooding was prevented from getting to you that was very low, or at least a lot lower than what they're talking about now. Well, the new mapping procedures that FEMA has instituted in the state really did not give credit to many of the levee systems that were formally credited. And so we're in an awkward situation where people bought flood insurance and bought homes and were living in areas that were protected from hurricane flooding at the time that they did that. and now are no longer protected according to FEMA's assessment. It's a mapping process that defines what the risk is. And so what they did when they issued these preliminary maps is they did not accredit, for example, the Sunset Drainage District area as having hurricane flood protection. And unfortunately, the former procedure of FEMA to grandfather in those homes and homeowners that had met the requirements at one point, and then therefore that they would be allowed to pay a rate, you know, into the future that reflected that original compatibility with the maps. That was no longer in effect. So as soon as the parish or any community adopts new maps, the rates get adjusted to the new map threat. And this is horrendous for not only St. Charles Parish, but for other parishes in the state. So the levy analysis and mapping program is an opportunity for a community to help FEMA and in fact influence FEMA as to how to credit these levies. There are 5 communities in the state of Louisiana that are considered part of the pilot program for this LAMP process. It's not fully developed. All we have is basically an outline of what the procedures are likely to be. But they're looking for communities to help them evolve this to make sure that it works on the ground. And this is an opportunity, but it's also quite a bit of a challenge. There's going to be a cost and some time involved. And President St. Pierre referred to the time. It may be a year or 2 before we even finish the LAMP process. And then we really restart the clock. FEMA will go back and redo the maps, issue the next generation of flood insurance maps.
Right.
The parish will, at that point, once they're officially given to the parish, have a chance to actually then at that time formally appeal it. I'm hoping that because we will be working with them through the pilot program, that we can agree on a procedure, agree on the data, and basically have the maps and their elevations defined well before the official maps are issued, so that we'll basically see what we're going to be getting. And idealistically, as soon as the maps came out, the parish would be in a position to accept them and move right into what I think will be potentially, and in some cases I know, will be a much better situation for the parish. We have the east bank of the parish on the eastern side of the Mississippi River. It's waiting to get quite a bit of improved flood protection actually and improved rate situation. So there are a number of things going. It's frustrating for people that have immediate issues with regard to flood insurance. And I understand the threat of uncertainty here is causing a lot of consternation amongst people that are involved with personal decisions about moving and selling homes or buying homes and things. But I think we have a tremendous opportunity. The parish is well supporting an effort to address those issues. And it's just going to take some time to kind of play out the technical aspects so that we can then get a new set of maps that we're in agreement with and avoid then having to challenge them.
Right, and I think that really important to take away from what you just said is this is an opportunity for the parish. We have the, like you said, we have the ability to influence FEMA where before maybe we didn't have that.
That is exactly one of the major problems that I think has resulted in the extent of the difficulties. It's a technical problem. There are some technical difficulties in dealing with flooding. You can make it worse, though, when you don't communicate. And FEMA, I don't think, properly communicated with the communities and with the parish before they came out with these last maps.
Right.
And so one of our biggest improvements is going to be that we should be part of the process, not just waiting for something to happen and then having to respond to some decisions that were made over a year in a 90-day period.
Right.
It's just not fair.
Right.
Yeah. Renee, one of the things that we did at the last council meeting, we passed a resolution asking the President of the United States to issue an executive order to stop the implementation of Biggers Waters because, as Senator Vitter said in the hearing, is that he issued that authority to stop the delay of the Obamacare. Excuse me, which wasn't ready for prime time. And certainly this is not ready for prime time because there's so many unanswered questions. Every time you talk to FEMA, you're getting a different answer. And I think if anybody watched that hearing under the Senate Banking Committee, there were a lot of answers that Craig Fugate couldn't answer, so they're not ready for it yet.
Right. So over the last few weeks, one of the big developments was the fact that the new flood insurance rates came out, the ones that had been promised for about 4 or 5 months. What do we know based on those rates? What can people who renew their policies after October 1st expect?
Well, they can expect, they're not going to pay the $28,000 originally we were talking about. It's probably be 12, but who thinks that 12,000 is affordable? It's still not affordable. And that's the point we're trying to make with FEMA. We want affordability study to see exactly what people can afford. They can't afford this. We had at the hearing Senator Mendez from Nevada, Schumer from New York. They all saying the same thing. Who can afford $12,000 a year in flood insurance on top of your regular insurance, your house note, your car note, your grocery bill, your gasoline bill? Where's that money going to come from?
Right.
You know, people are just going to walk away from mortgages, and the banks are really against it too now, because not only they lose the mortgage, they got to pay the insurance on the house until they sell it. So who's going to buy a house with $12,000 a year flood insurance?
Right.
So.
But Renee, what I'll add to that is we now know what FEMA thinks is affordable, because when Earl Mathern, our coastal zone manager, and Gino Inc. were putting out all these estimates of rates, FEMA kept saying 28,000 was, crazy, and that they didn't know where we got those numbers, despite the fact that they gave us those numbers. And so now that they've come out with their new rates with the new high of 19,000, this is what they called affordable. So now we know what FEMA thinks is affordable, and it's still not for the average upper middle class family, much less people on fixed incomes or low incomes. But October 1st is a major deadline for communities that have new maps. St. Charles, because we haven't adopted our maps, it will be much fewer the number of people that are truly affected. But I will state this, no matter which section in Bigger Waters you read, the 98-page law, if you lapse on your policy, you trigger a lot more than if you keep it up to date. So I would urge all the residents of St. Charles, keep paying it, even though you might be upset or mad. Pay your flood insurance premium, whether it's in your monthly mortgage or if it's an annual check that you write, because if you let it lapse, then there's a whole nother set of variables that get factored into your premium, and you skip a lot of delays that we're trying to do with VJ's efforts and Dr. Saheda's efforts. So again, I would really stress that people maintain their policies.
Yeah, that's great advice, yeah. So is anything that any of you would like to add as we kind of end the interview here?
Oh, just like the residents of St. Charles to know, now is not the time of panic. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. We really need your help. We really need you to keep contacting your senators and your congressmen, because I think every day we're getting more and more states jumping on board on our behalf. So right now I think we have Buddy's 28 states on board right now. And I think, Renee, like I was telling you earlier today, I got an email from the governor of Mississippi. He's actually going to file a suit against FEMA to delay implementation, and I think it's going to be in a court battle. And I think St. Charles Parish is going to have to spend a lot of money getting in on this class action suit to stop this thing.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here and giving us an update on this very important topic.
Thank you.
Catch the entire episode right here on Channel 6, daily at 5 p.m., or watch anytime at scptoday.com.